talk about what I learned this month so far. Hopefully, if I can film. See you later. In Russia, where I'm now, you're supposed to wear a mask in most places, although not all people do. But you're also supposed to wear gloves, and I actually really like it because you feel like extra fancy with those.
А можно мне, пожалуйста, средний капучино?
Здесь свой?
Здесь.
Корица сироп добавим?
Нет, спасибо. И круассан с лососем.
So, hopefully you can hear me. So far this month was considerably much more fiction literature or biography literature rather than anything that I can directly describe as learning for analytics or for mindset. I pretty much inhaled the audiobook by McConaughey called Greenlights. It was not a lot of learning opportunities, but it was just so entertaining. I think the book is written very well, so I did kind of learn how to structure stories and how to tell stories from that book. And the narration by Matthew McConaughey in Audible is just fantastic. Like, he's a great actor, and it's a lot of fun to listen to him just talk through. Like, this whole part was entertaining enough for me to not be able to stop listening to the book for, I don't know, several hours in one go. So that went by pretty fast because I think it's like 5 or 6 hours long. If anything I learned from it is the value of like authenticity and doing things how you feel doing them, regardless of how people think about you and what they think you should do, what kind of expectations they have in you. It's like you kind of know that before, but it gives encouragement and gives another example of how it worked for someone. So kind of a light, nice read, recommend to do it. Perfect, amazing narration by Matthew McConaughey. I really enjoyed that. Another book that's a bit more, also more autobiographical is What I Talk About When I Talk About Running by Haruki Murakami. I got an idea to read it from some vlogger that I watch who runs a lot as well. I used to run. Now, because of the health situation, I'm not yet there where I can actually run a lot. But I wanted to listen to this book because she said it's very inspirational, and it was a nice, light, also quite short read. It was nice to hear someone going through the same struggles as a runner, talking about it not just being a thing that you do for your health or because you know you need to, like still a lot of people probably do, just being something that you feel like you have to do. This is definitely how it was for me when I started last year, and I enjoyed it for the same reasons as Haruki Murakami, because it's a great time, like in solitude. Even if you're listening to something, it's perfect time to straighten your mind, going through some physical exercise. There is some peace and meditation to that. However, I wouldn't say it's a particularly entertaining book. At some points I felt like a little bored, and some parts that I couldn't relate to completely myself, like him stretching his health and straining himself for running like ultra marathons or running his first marathon between Athens and the marathon city, I guess, in Greece, how hard and painful it was. Like, it felt like a little bit overdoing. Is it worth it, is my question to this kind of activities. Like, I definitely understand runner's high, and I did feel amazing when I did my first K under 1 hour, which was like my goal, my first running goal. that felt so euphoric, but like the pain and the suffering of going through the marathon, or especially ultra marathon, and the toll it takes on your body, I don't know. I'm not sold. I wouldn't probably recommend to read this book, especially if you're not into running. If you're really into running, maybe something interesting for you. If you're not, it's okay, I guess. I'm not familiar with any other of Haruki Murakami's writings or any novels that he wrote. I haven't read anything. Maybe that's why I'm not that attached. I might give it a try. Yeah. Along with more like autobiographical books, this month I'm reading or listening to the 4th installment of the Dennis E. Taylor's Bobbyverse, the Heaven's River. Oh my god, what's wrong with my English? Heaven's River. And it's everything I want it to be. There are like some negative feedback or negative reviews of that book, but I really enjoyed it. It's a little bit going off the 3rd book of the Bobbyverse series in a way that it's a bit more adventurous and exploratory, and I did miss that. So I really like that. I'm maybe like 1/3 through, and really enjoying listening to it. It's exciting to discover new species, to travel in space and build intelligent AIs and all this stuff. It's kind of fun to think about this and how it's possible to have that in the future. And another really long read of this month that I've been sort of struggling through is a book called Invisible Women. I've been reading it maybe since mid-April, and like in short bites, because I think it takes some emotional toll on me. Like it does talk about how there are data gaps because of the gender, and how women are underrepresented in so many studies that impact our day-to-day life, like studies on how safe is it to be in a vehicle, or like construction of buildings, scheduling of cleaning of the streets from snow. Like all of that doesn't take into account in many countries gender-specific data, and that's a little bit grueling and sad to read, being a woman and feeling like, oh, this particular piece of equipment is so much more dangerous to me than to a person with a male body. So I've been kind of reading it in short bites, 1-2 hours at a time. I went for a lunch walk while it's still sunny, because the whole next week we're gonna have raining in Stockholm. And while I'm walking, I'm listening to an audiobook called The Invisible Women. And there is another great example of how people who work with data are responsible for unbiasing themselves when collecting and processing that data, so that different categories of people who depend on that data are not overlooked. As a data analyst or data scientist, most likely you're going to be at some point trying to estimate how to make the processes in the companies the most efficient. Usually those might be business analysts, not necessarily data scientists. And then you are looking into, let's say, the customer demand over different times over a week and different hours during the day, so that you can schedule your employees' work days the most efficient way. Apart from the fact that this is kind of moving the risk of the business or lack of the business from the employer or the business itself to the employees, this is also really affecting different groups of people in a different way. So here in the book they talk about an example from, I think, Starbucks, where they used algorithmic scheduling of the shifts for baristas, and the single mothers, for example, were disproportionately negatively affected by last-minute scheduling of the shifts, because for them it's really crucial to be able to book childcare, and especially in advance, since it's much harder to book reliable and quality childcare later, to closer to the date. And in this case, the responsibility of the business analyst or the data scientist would be to include those criteria and those pretty much characteristics of the people they're analyzing into the data set or into the consideration when they're building the algorithm for most efficient scheduling of the shifts of the employees. And now we have to sort of figure this out on our own and take it as a personal responsibility. And I know that a lot of people still kind of don't, because it's much more cool and fancy to, just get into machine learning or try this new tool or do this new fancy visualization and sit with yourself and think, how can I fuck up someone's life by doing this analysis? I might make it sound too serious. I hope not. And I'm definitely not working with like life critical things. Like I don't work in medical, healthcare, or scheduling of trains or anything, where it probably is much more necessary. But still, like I like to have this kind of thoughts at the back of my head, because I don't want my analysis to be someone's cause of inconvenience or suffering. Overall, I do think that's a super valuable read. Someone suggested me in the comments to another video reading Weapons of Math Destruction, and I think it's somewhat similar. Maybe it's not that centered around gender biased data, but how like data gaps can impact our lives. So probably that's going to be one of the next books I pick up. I think it's incredibly important for me as a data scientist to be aware of those biases, that they happen literally everywhere, and they do happen because of the lack of diversity in the teams that build different products, because of the acceptance of the way to do things that we've done before, and the reluctance to start doing things in a new, different way that's more relatable and that's more relevant to the current society that we live in. I strongly recommend everyone to read that. It's not only about women, it's generally about underrepresented types of people, underrepresented communities. It's not just about gender data gap, it can be extrapolated to racial gap and maybe disability awareness gap. It's just about how intertwined into our lives the results of the studies are, that are not built to fit everyone, and one size fits all is usually one size fits white male of a certain height and a certain ability and a certain maybe even education. So if you work in any way with data, with building products, with building tools, with arranging cities, designing buildings, designing furniture, I think it's super valuable to be aware of that and to make sure that anything you build that you give away to people to use is taking into account what kinds of, like all the possible ranges of different people that might use your product, and make sure that it's at least safe for them, let alone, convenient.
Another thing that I learned this month, or got to reflect on this month, is dealing with haters due to having this somewhat public personality on YouTube and Instagram. I really like when people write me messages about how my videos helped them or were inspirational or made them feel supported and understood. It's really, really nice, and it's one of the biggest reasons why I continue doing something and releasing something and talking about things that matter to me, because I feel like it's important to be open and transparent and explain to others that it's okay to take some time to learn things, that it's okay to ask questions, that it's okay not to understand things, it's okay to be vulnerable. I really like this attitude and I want to keep it up. But of course, there are people who feel like they're entitled to you behaving a certain way towards them. For example, people who just write me messages like, hey girl, what's up? Like, beautiful and stuff like this, which I most of the time just ignore because I have nothing to answer to that. It's not a question, it's not politely phrased, and I genuinely just don't enjoy getting those messages. And then some of those people get frustrated that I don't answer, and this month there was a guy who wrote me several messages on Instagram, and then when I didn't answer, he wrote more saying like, you know, I'm gonna keep writing you until you reply, which at worst sounds threatening, and at best is like, I don't know, a weird way to bully me into talking to him, which is still somewhat questionable. Potentially he meant it lightheartedly, but still I feel like you should kind of reflect a little bit on how you phrase things, because it can be understood by different people differently. So I replied to him saying like, hello, this kind of message makes me feel uncomfortable. On which, of course, I got like a huge set of messages saying like, oh, you're weird, you're making me uncomfortable, I was just trying to be fun, like, are you too old for social media? And that's, and the whole like set of messages ended with him saying like, oh yeah, no wonder you're single. Which is just so... There's so many issues around this whole set of messages, from the fact that person assumes my age, my relationship status, to the fact that they need to kind of try to put me down after I just said that I don't want to talk to them, which is normal. Like, people on the street don't want to talk to people. That happens. And I'm very, very happy on how I managed to handle it. Like, it didn't hurt me personally at all, because I don't take this kind of behavior personally. I know why it happens, because of maybe cultural upbringing or childhood or things like that. I don't want to make any assumptions, but overall I understand that it's not about me, more about the person who wrote those kind of things. But it still took me maybe a couple of hours to like try to process that, get some support from friends, like try to understand, am I being unreasonable? Which I wasn't, and most of my friends with whom I have similar values supported me in being right in this situation. I spent a lot of time after as well reflecting on like the challenges in tech industry, because this person who wrote this stuff also worked in a tech company. I think he mentioned he worked on YouTube or something like that. And like, I understand how tough it is for a woman to be on the internet, to be working in tech, to have all those random expectations from other people put on her, on us, and how hard and how challenging it is, and how brave you must be to be able to like do things and be out there. Now, I'm by no means particularly brave. Like, it's very scary for me to still release videos and talk about things in my life, and I appreciate everyone who's supporting me and trying to tell me that they like it, that they enjoyed the videos, that it inspired them to do something. So really, really thank you. It's not empty words, and I think most of the creators who say things like, oh, like, thank you so much for the support and love that you give us, is really true. It's really encouraging and inspiring. But damn, life's tough as a woman. Really aligns with the whole Invisible Women book that I've also been reading this month, and overall it's just, I've never really experienced that at work. Luckily, I'm really happy and really grateful to my colleagues for mostly being really nice, and maybe I managed to avoid some situations where I would get some kind of inappropriate commentary. Like, I never really go to parties and things like that, but still, like, I feel super privileged not having to face those kind of weird behaviors, maybe even worse, like harassments in life, and I really hope it continues like this. To the women out there struggling in the tech world, in YouTube, on Instagram, wherever you are, if you're putting yourself out there and there are people who hate that, who don't like that, who have expectations in you, be strong. It's not only worth it for you, but also it's a part of overall narrative in the community to kind of push ourselves and be more present and tell people that it's not okay to do these things, so that we try to bring this change to the environment and to the society, that people understand that this kind of behavior that they might have picked up from older movies and catcalling, where it was normalized, is
not normal. People have boundaries and you gotta respect them. Yeah, the rant is over. Thank you.
I need to check on my notes if there is anything else that I wanted to talk about. Oh yes. Another book that I've been struggling to read is Daring Greatly by Brené Brown. You might have heard of her because of her TED Talks on vulnerability, and I think she also has a Netflix special now, also on like the power of shame and vulnerability. I did enjoy the TED Talk, and a friend of mine suggested me to read her book and even loaned me a hard copy, which I've been struggling through for almost a year. I got it like end of August or something, and it's one of those books that has some really great ideas and some like a lot of encouragement to behaving in authentic and vulnerable way, explains as to why it's valuable and how we try to protect ourselves from being vulnerable, all the different things and strategies we use to like build walls around us. But it's just way too long. Like it would be better, maybe it would be better as an audiobook in this case because I could speed it up. There are a lot of stories that I kind of find repetitive and talking about similar things, and I don't necessarily want to read them over and over. I strongly believe that vulnerability is very valuable, and being open and honest is one of the values that I cherish in my life and that I want from people around me. I don't know. I'm torn. I'd give it 5 out of 10 or something. I don't know. But maybe just for me. I don't know. I like Brené Brown and I like her TED Talks, so I'd rather recommend watching her Netflix special on her TED Talks instead. Cool. I'm gonna actually attempt to eat my breakfast, so thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and have a nice day. There is a church nearby, as you can hear probably, so I gotta have to wait and drink some juice before filming. Another thing that I got to not really learn but reflect on this month is how your perspective, your dreams, your ideas, your plans obviously change a lot when you're moving countries. I left Russia 7 years ago to study abroad, and then I just stayed there for work, and now that I came back, I mean obviously I've been coming back more frequently, but now that I came back like 7 years later now to visit my parents, it just feels weirdly same but different. Like both I changed a lot, mostly grew, not necessarily only because I moved abroad, but also because of just general life experiences and so on. And also Moscow is completely different. I don't remember it like this. This just feels same but different. I've been talking to a friend who also moved abroad about like how maybe when I was 15 or younger, I was dreaming of living in a house like this, like a 15-story panel building in the outskirts of Moscow. Like that was my dream, because I was living on the first floor of a 9-floor building that was not as new at the time. like I can't imagine living in a house more than maybe 5 stories, just because it's so much more convenient when you have like access to the nature, a little courtyard, maybe deers running next to your courtyard, in like it is in Sweden and Stockholm, and that obviously is similar to so many other ideas and plans and dreams that I had. They completely changed since then. I'm not like a huge advocate for moving abroad or living abroad for some time, because I think a lot of people go there for the wrong reasons and have wrong expectations, like their life will change magically and drastically into something better, and they will become this different person that they imagined themselves as living in this town or this country, and that never happens. Wherever you go, you bring yourself with you, like your problems, your issues, your anxieties, your social skills don't change that much. Of course, the environment kind of molds you over time, but not necessarily, and you gotta have to put some effort into allowing it to mold you, and allowing yourself to, what's the word, integrate. Yes, allowing yourself to integrate there. There is an immense value in getting different experiences in life, in different surroundings, in different environments. That's just super truth. Like, if it's not moving to a different country, maybe it's a city, maybe it's just a different area of the town, maybe it's changing companies. Even if you're kind of happy at your current workplace, but you've been there for like 5 years and it's all the same, it might be worth it to switch around and try something new. Maybe it will be better, maybe it will be worse, but you'll learn, get some experiences, trying out new things, experimenting with your life, experimenting with the things you do, the things you work with, the people you talk to, the people you trust and ask for feedback. It's all kind of adds a lot of layers to your own personality. It can be really, really tough, especially if you're not 100% accepting of yourself the way you are and kind to yourself. It can be super hard to go out of your, the so-called comfort zone and do something new, but also can be immensely valuable, and I totally don't regret that I moved. I really like living where I live now, and I do miss Moscow a lot because it's a big city and I've been born here, and there's like memories attached to a lot of places, although a lot of those places already changed completely. I don't recognize them. I think trying out new things and experimenting is extremely valuable. So not a learning, but just like an extra reflection this month on this, and allows me to be happy with myself and my choices. That's always nice. Let me take you on a walk. Thank you for coming on a walk with me. That's it for today. Bye.